Hello, listeners. It's Friday. And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all listeners to a magnificent Friday.
Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
Well, let's jump right into the stories while I enjoy my morning cafe brew.
What are you going to enjoy today?
Some passion fruit tea.
Oh, passionate. I guess we're just passionate to get to the weekend, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for removing my wife's wrist privileges? Sorry for this random throwaway. I am 36 male and she is 34 female. The honest core of this question is that I am super anti-notification. I know I sound like a boomer, but I got sick of knowing that Aunt Maple commented on my Insta post years ago. I will open the app if I want to know that. I do not need to know about Aunt Maple's comment until the second I seek out that information. However, I appreciated the health and activity features on the Apple Watch, so I got one for myself and I tediously curated the information delivered to me on my wrist. Notifications are even worse on the watch because I can't exactly just flip the watch over and ignore it. My wife, whom I love very much, wanted to make sure she could get a hold of me, so we use a chat app that allows notifications. The rules are very clear. When I switch to this app, she can text me once, and I'll answer at my earliest convenience. I will always know it is her texting because she is the only person who has access to my wrist notifications. Any more than one text means emergency. She has run afoul of that rule many times, as you can guess. She says she very literally cannot stop herself when she gets excited and that she's not neurotypical like me, so I can't understand. And she's right. I don't understand what it's like to have ADHD, but I do know what my boundaries are with my wrist buzzing while I'm at work. Last week, she sent me like 4 consecutive texts because she found out that her coworker, who I don't know and frankly do not care about, had gotten a DUI while he was in college years ago. So that night, I sat down with her and said I was not going to do the wrist notifications anymore and that I'd regularly check my phone for messages from her. She was kind of vaguely mad about it for a week, but yesterday, I finally just confronted her about it and she said that she thought I was being disrespectful of her limitations and that everyone gets used to notifications eventually. I said it had been 3 months and I was still not used to it, and she said I should give it more time. Here's where I might have been the a-hole. I told her I thought this was a tiny issue that wasn't even worth being angry about. I still check my phone for her texts, and I've never missed one by more than like 15 minutes. I also explained that she can still call me if there's an emergency. She's still mad. Am I the a-hole?
So, if I say that he's the a-hole, I think I would be lying to myself just a tad. I just maybe because, look, I'll start with this because I don't know yet. I'm figuring it out in my head as I'm talking. He loves his wife clearly, and his wife clearly loves him. We can start with that.
Okay.
I think it's harmless that she wants to text him because this is the thing. Regardless of the ADHD, I understand that, okay? We'll push that to the side. Because there's a lot of people that just love texting regardless of if they have a disorder or not. And there's a lot of people who get super hyped and just want to share what they've just learned with the person they love the most. That happens a lot. Clearly, she likes sharing. He already says it takes him about 15 minutes to respond to anything. That's not every situation. A lot of people, when they get texts, won't answer it, especially if they're at work, till they're either on lunch or they're done with work, period. Right? So the fact that he is as observant already as he is, giving it a 15-minute delay, I think is more than acceptable. Although I can sympathize with the fact that she does have ADHD and it might be harder for her to control the urge to, but she's just sharing. Maybe if he's the a-hole in the situation, it's because he's acting the way he is. I know there's got to be a way to turn off the buzzing, isn't there? Like, I feel like with a watch, I don't own one myself.
Well, that's the problem. Apparently he's going to turn it off, and that's why she's upset.
Well, can't he just say, if he does check already 15 minutes every time and without fail, can't you just say he's keeping it on? Just leave her in the dark about it. If he's going to look at it regardless, turn off the notification. I don't think it harms anybody. But maybe going and telling her, like, you've overstepped your boundaries. Like
this is dark.
Yeah, like, like Batman and Robin type situation. Don't use the bat signal. That kind of stuff. She's just happy to share stuff with you. That's why I look at it as this is very just funny, harmless story.
So what is your take on this, Timstradamus?
I think maybe he's being a little harsh on her, so I guess he would be the a-hole just on the fact of how he handled the situation. I think he could have turned off the notification and not hurt her, because apparently it's very important. You want to be heard, and I get it. As a partner, you want that from your partner, right?
Yeah.
So I guess he could have just as harmlessly said, yeah, I'm turning off the notification, but he didn't have to tell her, especially if he's checking it every 15 minutes. In my mind, he kind of is lightly the a-hole in this situation.
Well, this was a lot of back and forth with our commenters, but it looks like mostly it's not the a-hole.
Okay.
I know he provides some more details, and I'm going to read a commenter, but let me go ahead and provide his more details. ETA, okay, she got home, and I just had a short but really helpful conversation with her. She said that she didn't really want to buzz me all the time, but she felt really special that she was the only person who I allowed to text me on the watch.
See?
She was sad that we lost that little intimate connection, and that makes total sense, and we both committed to finding a good solution that makes us both happy. Really sorry that I dragged so many people into this. It was a small thing that could have been solved by both of us being super vulnerable and honest with each other. Now, the one commenter, let me go ahead and read to you as she provides us the perspective from somebody who is afflicted with ADHD.
Okay.
They say, no assholes here, but you do seem a little obsessed about not getting notifications. It comes across like you care more about your boundaries and never being interrupted than you do about your wife, which may be why she's upset. Most of us with ADHD, especially women, at least the ones I know, have been called annoying or too much our entire lives. And it hurts to have someone who is supposed to love you also tell you you're too much. I have ADHD, and early on in our relationship, my now husband and I had to have a conversation about my texting while he was at work because his boss was giving him a hard time about it. It was hard, still is sometimes, but it doesn't matter as much now because his current job doesn't care if he uses his phone. Because if I wait, I'll 100% forget what I was going to tell him by the end of the time he's off. Also, sometimes I would forget he was at work since he didn't work traditional hours and we work different shifts. I understood why he had to do it, and I respected it, but I was definitely hurt in a way that I suspect your wife is too. Maybe even worse for her, since the bad guy in my scenario was the boss rather than my husband himself, and we weren't married. I think turning text notifications off on your watch is reasonable, since you still have your phone and most texts don't actually require an immediate answer. That buzzing does get annoying after a while. Your rule about never texting more than once, however, is unreasonable in general and totally unworkable when you're married to someone with ADHD. An emergency should always be calls. Texts should just be things that pop up throughout the day.
I love the perspectives we're getting through Reddit. I don't have ADHD, and in my personal life, I've not had to deal with that. So, it is very interesting to get that perspective from someone who actually has it and goes through it. In my mind, again, I looked at it as very harmless to get the text during the day because she just loves you and she just wants to share that information with you. But you're also allowed to have your preferences as to what. Yes, that comment was right, though. One text a day seems very unreasonable. But everyone lives a different life, right?
I suppose. I definitely do side with that commenter on I don't think there's really any a-holes in this whole thing.
That's why I said if he was, it was very light.
Yeah, and it was only just the way he came off.
Yep, that's all.
Well, for our next story, let's see how the stepmom is doing. Am I the a-hole for shaving my stepson's long hair without his mom's permission?
I want on the ride. My
husband and I have 3 sons together, 2, 4, and 5. And I have 2 stepsons, 10 and 13. We have 50-50 custody. I cut my kids' hair myself, and my stepsons get their hair cut at a barber when their mom has custody. In the last few years, my husband has occasionally taken them to get their hair cut. Wednesday afternoon, I decided to give my 4- and 5-year-old haircuts. The 10-year-old then asked if I would cut his hair too. His hair was currently shoulder length, and he had been growing it for a while. He wanted me to give him a buzz cut. I asked if he was sure, and then texted his dad to make sure he was okay with it. His dad asked if I would wait till he came home so he could watch and record it. When he came home, I shaved it, and he was very happy with the result. Yesterday, his mom picked him up from school and saw his hair. She immediately called my husband and was pissed about the haircut. Later in the evening, she messaged me on Instagram to have a go at me and say I had no right cutting her son's hair without her permission, and that it was a big change and I shouldn't have allowed him to do it impulsively. I didn't reply to her because I didn't want to feed into any drama. I thought stepson was happy with his haircut, and that's all that really matters. However, the more I think about it, the more I'm unsure if she's right. If my son had a stepmom and came home from their house with a drastically different haircut, I think I might have been upset too, and possibly think that person crossed an unspoken boundary. Am I the a-hole?
In my mind, if a kid, because one parent was there, the dad, he
Correct.
wanted to share the moment and record it. That's a fun little memory, right?
Yeah.
Especially because the kid sounds like he has his hair to his shoulders, so he's been growing it for a minute.
He wanted to
He
see
wanted
the drastic
a buzz cut.
change.
Yeah, he's a 10-year-old. You should always experiment with if it's not harmful. If the kid wants to try something, it's growth, right? How do you know what hairstyles you like unless you start doing it, right? So I guess if the kid wants to experiment with hairstyles, now's the time, right? Like he wanted it. It wasn't forced on him. The dad was present. He ended up liking the haircut, from what I understand. The OP does give a very interesting pause there and goes, how would I feel if my kid came home from his step-parents' house with a totally different haircut and me not being notified or told or asked in any way? It's an interesting way to look at it. I still, in my mind, would go, as long as my child was happy with what haircut he was getting, I can't be upset about that. And it's harmless. The kid wanted the haircut. He saw his siblings getting a haircut. That's just another way for them to all grow together and have fun. Dad was present. This wasn't malicious in any way, and I don't think. So, yeah, I'm just going to say that I don't think that the OP is the a-hole.
Well, all of Reddit says that she's not the a-hole.
Okay.
In fact, one top commenter said, not the a-hole. You got the okay from his dad, and he is old enough to make his own decisions about his hair anyways. It would have been real weird for you to call his mom and ask after his dad already said to go ahead.
Yeah.
For me, it just feels like the biological mother just got upset because she was just being sensitive. But, well, let's go on to our next story. Am I the a-hole for saying dishwashing is unskilled labor? I've been seeing this girl for 3 months, who I'm pretty into. She's a professional chef, hot, and basically a badass. She smokes pot and drinks a lot more than me, but other than that, I have no complaints. She's very assertive because she has to be in her line of work, and luckily I'm into that, if you know what I mean. She works at an upscale bar, hence the drinking, where the food is really important, and she's super talented, so her dishes get written up in our local media, which is so cool. It feels a bit like dating a celebrity when we go out because she seems to know all the industry people and we get free drinks and stuff. The problem came up when she was complaining about her job, which she does a lot. She says her boss is unsupportive and won't hire more help for the kitchen. Right now, she does almost everything herself, so her hours are crazy long and she's stressed all the time. I agree, it doesn't make sense to be so short-staffed because it seems like the bar is always busy and they make good money. The owner is an old-school boomer guy who thinks she's overreacting, or so she says. I don't like feeling helpless when she complains about work, so I offered to help wash dishes one night so she wouldn't have to work until 3 a.m. and we could go out. I made a lot of money in tech and retired early, so I have some time on my hands. She looked surprised and laughed and said thank you for the offer. I was kind of hoping she would turn me down, but the way she said it was kind of patronizing, so I pressed a bit. She went into professional mode and asked if I'd ever washed dishes before. I said yes, obviously, but not in a restaurant or anything. Now she looked really annoyed and asked why I thought I could just jump in and wash dishes without any experience. I laughed at this and said anyone could wash dishes. Teenagers do it as their first job. She got offended and said I didn't understand the realities of kitchen work because it's not easy and dishwashers are the most important person in the restaurant. I thought that was a huge exaggeration. I worked at a Wendy's in high school and it's the same skill set. What she does is skilled, but washing dishes is not skilled labor. She said there's no such thing as unskilled labor, and I'd take you up on your offer if I thought you wouldn't mess up service. I thought that was really rude and misguided. No such thing as unskilled labor? Are you kidding me? And told her so. She told me I was condescending and presumptuous, and she gets enough of that from her boss. The date was awkward for a while, until she smiled and changed the subject. But now I can't stop wondering if her boss doesn't have a point about her overreacting. Am I the a-hole? Edit. She specifically said she needed a dishwasher. I didn't just pick it because I thought it was easy. Sorry, that was unclear. Edit 2. All she said by way of explanation was I'd get run over. I asked what made it skilled, and she said I was starting a bigger conversation that she didn't want to have right then while she was upset and not entirely sober. Fair enough. Am I the a-hole?
So your girlfriend sounds dope. And it sounds like if you're not careful, you're going to ruin a good thing. Because if someone in the industry, which it sounds like she's very much in that industry, she's a chef. You say it feels like you're with a celebrity everywhere you go, so she knows what she's talking about. We'll start with that. If she tells you that she thinks that that position is skilled labor, then you need to understand you're not taking it from Joe Schmo who worked at Wendy's like you did. No offense. No offense, please, as I don't mean it that way. But you're talking about, and in your words, this was an upscale bar scene. Okay, so she knows what it takes to live in that world. I would take her word that if she says that is skilled labor, you need to set your ego aside and understand that I don't know if she was attacking you, but more giving you the reality of the position and trying to get you to understand. Now, I understand from her point though, she's like, hey, I don't want to get into this. I'm not sober, and they're on a date. She's already upset. So going into that, I would have loved to have heard exactly what makes that position needing to be a skilled person that understands. She says you get run over. I think you might be the a-hole in the situation just because it sounds like your ego is getting a little too big for you.
So let me go ahead and let you know what Reddit thinks.
Okay.
They think he is the a-hole. Like this was the tidal wave of he is the a-hole.
Uh-oh.
Actually, there's I believe a Forbes article involving how it is that dishwashers in the kitchen are the most essential when it comes to a restaurant. It's like the backbone.
I can believe it.
So let me go ahead and read to you some edits and updates from our poster.
Can't wait.
Edit 3. Wow. This was a lot to wake up to. I can't read 1,000+ comments, but you've given me some questions to ask her later. It sounds like skilled has different meanings, and she wasn't talking about a standardized definition like I was. We haven't talked since this conversation on Thursday, and she has Sunday and Monday off, so she should be calm and sober when I see her tonight. I will apologize for mansplaining and see if she can explain what I'd have to do to be skilled enough to be a dishwasher. My offer was sincere, and I didn't really want to do it. Who would? It sounds miserable, but I want to support her. Now for the update. After reading through some more comments, I started to worry I'd really screwed things up, and I didn't want to wait until tonight to apologize. She didn't text me this morning to confirm our date like she usually does, and I had a bad feeling. I reached out and apologized for mansplaining something she obviously knew more about, and explained I was hurt by her patronizing response to my offer to help. She apologized and thanked me again for the offer, explaining she thought I was joking and never would have reacted that way if she'd known it was being sincere. She apologized for complaining so much and explained that it wasn't always a crisis situation, but the bar has doubled its business in the last year, and now she's burning out. The situation with her boss is stressing her out even more than anything. She's approached him several times, and he keeps brushing her off. It's almost hard to believe a business owner could be so in denial, but I feel really bad that I reminded her of him. I asked if we could talk about the skilled versus unskilled labor argument tonight, and she said, "Is it okay if we don't? Things were going so well." I'm kind of frustrated by this because she made such a big deal out of it, but I'll respect her wishes.
She doesn't want to talk about work stuff in a non-work environment, and I can understand that. So for you, if you really want to learn about that, Google it, because I promise you, you will probably get a lot of very detailed explanations from people that aren't your girlfriend who already is stressed out about her current condition. And also, and this is something that you'll learn, not particularly to the OP. I'm not talking to the OP, I'm talking to just people in general. When someone, your partner, or most people in any way, when they complain about something, especially when it pertains to like work and stuff, not all the time are they looking for you to white knight and go save them. A lot of the time, venting is just a good way for them to release the pressure. So I only say that because he's like, I offered it, but I was hoping she wouldn't take me up on it. Do not feel like you have to do that with every situation in someone's life when they're venting to you. Please understand the difference between when you should step in and when it's just, hey, just let me talk. You'll learn those things as you get older, and I think it's just a good skill to have.
Well, let me go ahead and read a couple comments from our Redditors. The first one says, former chef and current woman in tech here. For the record, no part of career retaining and entering the tech industry has been harder than any part of kitchen work yet. Bro, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Why is your headline about the question of skilled versus unskilled labor? That's not even the part that pissed her off. It sounds to me like this woman probably works 50 to 60 hours a week for an old man who treats her like a hysterical female and dismisses her valid staffing concerns, so she's burning out. He's probably got her on salary and she still gets the job done, so there's no problem on his end. She's probably worked every station in multiple kitchens and her share of dishes to boot. The people who do these jobs work insanely hard. I'm saying not only has this chick been to hell, she's the chef there. And now this wealthy, unemployed tech dude who gets to bask in her hard-earned industry cred tosses out a bullshit offer to do a job he has so little respect for that he thinks he can just walk on for a night or two? Yeah, I'd say that's pretty insulting. I think she just found out how out of touch you are and what you really think about people in the service industry, except the hot, locally famous ones, of course. Another Redditor said, seriously, he's fetishizing the thick skin she's had to develop because of how much harder she's had to work to be respected in her industry. Gross. This entire post actually got deleted by the poster. So I think we were very fortunate that I was able to snatch this up so that we could actually hear the entire story.
He took the post, saw all the bad replies, because it sounds like it was all bad. He deleted it, went up to his chef girlfriend and said,
sorry.
Reddit said I was right, baby. She's like, where's the post? Don't worry about it. It was banned. It's fine.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Well, hopefully he figures out that situation, stops talking to her condescendingly, and
otherwise this celebrity chef might go somewhere else.
Yep.
While we're done in the kitchen, let's see what's going on at the skate park. For our next story, am I the a-hole for calling my girlfriend an idiot because she secretly bought my son a skateboard? I, 30 male, have a 9-year-old son with my ex-girlfriend, 29 female. We split 6 years ago, but share custody, 1 week on, 1 week off arrangement. I have been in a relationship with my current girlfriend, 27 female, for 4 years. She's incredible, and she gets along with my son amazingly. Last year, my son suddenly gained an obsession with skateboarding. He would talk nonstop about it and kept asking if he could get a skateboard. My ex and I discussed and mutually decided against letting him skateboard because he's still very young and obviously there's always a risk of injury. My son was very upset when we said no, but he eventually got over it. Yesterday afternoon, I left the house for an hour to run some errands, and while I was out, I got a call from my girlfriend telling me that she had to take my son to the emergency department and to meet her there. He had a dislocated shoulder. I was confused. I had no idea what was happening. I immediately drove to the hospital. I asked her how did it happen, and she admitted that she bought him a skateboard 3 months ago and that he had a nasty fall while riding it at the skate park she had taken him to while I was out. I was angry, but I didn't want to start an argument in the middle of a hospital, so I gave her the silent treatment until we got home. I rang up my ex straight away to tell her what happened and got an earful from her. My girlfriend apologized to my ex when she arrived at the hospital, but she wasn't having any of it. So basically, my girlfriend made my son promise her not to say anything about the skateboard to me or his mother, and they've been hiding the skateboard from me for months. I asked my girlfriend why the did she think that would be okay, and she simply said she just wanted to make my son happy, and she argued that she never let him skate alone. She was always with him. Apparently, she would take him to the skate park whenever I was out of the house, which wasn't often, but I don't want him at the skate park ever. I called her a fucking idiot, and that it's her fault that my son got injured. She said I was being a dick, and that she didn't mean for it to happen. She was just trying to do something nice. Now we're barely talking to each other. Am I the a-hole or what?
This is a spicy meatball. You done it. Because I can see it from both ends. Because it just sounds like... All right, fine. We'll start with the top of the cake. All right, the very top layer. The parents have already agreed, both sides, unfortunately, that they don't want their kid on a skateboard right now.
Correct.
Fine. But now we get into it. Layer 2.
Like a cake.
Yes. The girlfriend is just trying to be a cool future stepmom to the kid. Like, the main thing is that they don't want him to have an injury. All right, well, unfortunately, the worst case scenario happened. She took the kid to the skate park and he dislocates his shoulder.
Ouch.
But it sounds like they were having a good run for at least 3 months. The kid got to skateboard, is building a memory and a bond with the girlfriend, again, future stepmom. Maybe not after all of this. If I had had someone in my life that was like letting me do that, I understand from the parents, and it's a big betrayal because they both said no. But maybe they're being a little too... Injuries are going to happen, right? And no matter what you do, even if they're playing an organized sport, say football, basketball, whatever have you, there's still always going to be a risk for injury. The kid showed some interest and wanted to skateboard. Because I can see it from both ways. This is the specimen bow. I'm going to say that the OP is the a-hole. And I think instead of understanding that it was just a dislocated shoulder, that she is there with him at the skate park. Although I understand that going behind his back, sneaking out. I just see the harmlessness in it, but I get it from a parent perspective. You shouldn't have taken the kid out without the father's knowledge of it, because the kid ended up getting hurt. But I gotta say, from the wild child in me, because I'm a former latchkey kid, boys. You know what I mean? Like, when I got home from school, it was just, hey, let's go get up to some stuff. I've gotta say, in my viewpoint, the OP is the a-hole. I understand it. I can feel it in my gut. But they're just trying to share a memory, and she's taking him out of that bubble of maybe they're being too safe. I don't know. Sometimes you gotta break, and in this literal sense, you gotta dislocate a shoulder to grow, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I'm wrong here, but I'm gonna stick with what I said. The OP is the a-hole.
Well, Reddit actually says he's not the a-hole. And the reason why they say that he's not the a-hole, so here's where we can feel the push and pull, especially with what you're saying.
I get all the logical facts.
First, a lot of people are saying that he's helicoptering parents.
Sure.
They say that he's acting like the type of parent that when your kid goes to an interview, you're calling them like every 15 minutes to make sure everything went fine, because you're not allowing your child to grow.
Yep.
Accidents are going to happen. If you think the moment you step out that door that something isn't going to happen, you've got another thing coming.
Yep.
However, the one reason why they say that he's not the a-hole, it's the fact that the girlfriend would say, keep this a secret from your mom and dad.
Okay, so...
And they say that should ring up any type of warning signs when it comes to anyone, as probably there are a lot of Redditors out there that are parents. If you want to trust your partner with your kid, that's just biologically yours, and you're trying to potentially see them as a partner, to have it be okay that there's any kind of secrets is a huge red flag for a lot of parents.
I can see where that's a red flag that I may have overlooked on that part, but I only looked at it where she's just trying to just be this really cool stepmom figure in his life. But I get it. That statement in itself is a very it's harmful. So I get it.
Now, what a lot of people said should have been done by the girlfriend is that instead she should have gone to the father and done her darndest to convince him to change his stance. If this is something that she thought would benefit, she should have been arguing those points and showing him the proof in the pudding that, hey, yes, no matter what, if he even decides that he wants to go on a bus, if he decides he wants to go on some roller skates, if he wants to go ice skating, there's always going to be accidents. As long as we make sure that he's got the helmet and the pads and that maybe we're present when he does it, that we mitigate any kind of accident from happening. Maybe those would have been some good arguing points for the girlfriend, but she went behind his back and she made this 9-year-old basically pivoted their trust against the parents to trust her specifically, and kept a secret that caused him to be injured, which proved the point that the parents were right in this one instance.
I know. I said it. I'm like, I know that everything, but I can just see it from the little kid in my mind. Me, it would have been like, this is so cool. I have this. I'm sharing this. I'm being able to do something I really wanted to. But I get I even agree with that. As a parent looking into that, going, yes, the whole promise not to tell your folks what we're doing, that opens the door to a lot of other things. So
now there's a difference when you're talking about one, if you're older adults and you're like, hey, I want to tell you this in confidence.
Sure.
Or this is something that's just between you and me as an adult figure, both of you being adults. Yeah. But this is a child with an adult.
Against his parents.
The actual
wishes.
biological
That's where
parents.
I can get it. I definitely understand. But like I said, there's the wild child in me that was like, man, that would have been cool to have had someone like that in my life where like, hey, by the way, let's go.
Now, where you were the wild child, for me, I was very much the opposite. My mother spent time and time again telling me the dangers of me just stepping out the door. And for a while, every time it was like I had to look over my shoulder just to walk to school. Like that was a 5 to 10 minute walk from home. I didn't even really go out to spend the night anywhere at friends or go over to friends' places because of the dangers that entailed. And for a while there, that felt like that stunted me from growing as an individual because it was like you were afraid of some phantom figure. When I hear about you as a kid and your adventures with your siblings, to me, they're like these amazing things I wish I could have experienced. So I can see it from both sides in that regard.
And that's where I try. Like the helicopter parenting comment was very truthful. And I think people have to be careful when they do parent. And you can't tell people how to parent. We're not trying to do that kind of thing. But it's more like you do have to be careful. Allow kids to grow and experience things. And, yes, be there where you can be there. But there's just learning how to walk the fine line between being a helicopter parent and being a loving and caring parent. And I think everyone has to grow into that role as they get into it. I get why they were upset, but maybe they can come back to the table and he doesn't lose. Was there an update? No
update.
Hopefully they can work something out where the kid does actually get to go skateboard and maybe they can do it as a family.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about other families and potentially a new little addition. For our next story, am I the a-hole for announcing me and my girlfriend's pregnancy in the presence of my brother and his girlfriend who can't have kids?
Let me off the ride.
Nope, you're stuck. Me and my girlfriend have recently had the 12-week scan of our first baby, and we couldn't be more excited. My brother and his girlfriend are slightly older than us and have been trying for a baby for a while now with no success. Ours was totally unplanned. While we were excited to let my family know, we knew it was a touchy subject because of the difficulties my brother and his partner have been having. They're not sure she can have kids at all, and we were having conversations on how to break the news. This weekend, we just got back from my brother's stag party, an event I made sure to keep the pregnancy secret for so as not to ruin it. And with it being Mother's Day, we all ended up together in my mom and dad's house having Chinese. Me and my partner decided that with us all together, it would be a perfect time to let everyone know that we were expecting a baby. Well, it didn't go down so well. My brother's partner was visibly upset and left the room shortly after to burst into tears. My brother, while congratulating and everything, was visibly concerned, and my mom and dad were very restrained in showing their pleasure so as not to make things worse. The whole evening ended on a slightly poor note, and we all left soon afterwards. Me and my partner felt so guilty and feel we should have never announced it in this way. My dad, however, disagrees and said that my brother and his partner were very selfish and rude to behave in that way. Am I the a-hole?
No, OP, you are not the a-hole. You sharing your amazing gift and announcement with your family is your guys is right. Now, I do feel for people who want to conceive that are having trouble doing it, because obviously that is a very touchy subject for people. But the way I look at it is when someone else gives you their good news, when it had nothing to do with you, to put yourself in there and basically ruin that announcement, because forever that memory now is that whole problem. It will never be about that they got to announce their big news to the family. I understand the feelings of that struggle, but I feel for you and your partner having to have basically felt guilted in such good news. I just don't think that the OP is the a-hole for having shared good news with the family. I don't think that that's their responsibility to have to hide the good news. I hasten to laugh about it, but they kind of sound like the people that they ran into the kitchen, she's crying, and then they come out going, well, we have even better news. He proposed. Like, that's the type of selfishness I'm hearing in this story, or they're just be happy for the person. Yes, unfortunately, it's a touchy subject, but stop letting the emotion of your problems water down onto other people's lives when they're giving good news to you, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Well, the consensus when it comes to this thread is that the poster is not the a-hole. Okay. However, for me personally, I would probably put this along, no one's truly the a-hole here. But let me go ahead and provide some different viewpoints from our commenters.
Always good.
The first one, a lot of the people that say you are the a-hole to our commenter or to our poster, they tend to be, and from what I can see, the biggest stint is that it was done on Mother's Day. So it's kind of like, almost felt like a, I don't know.
A stab at
almost
the
like
others for not. Why would they ever do that? Why would someone ever come at it from that perspective?
And that's why that whole thing just felt more, I guess you could say, sensitive to the subject.
Okay.
It felt like a lot of the people that was responding to this might also be people who are struggling to have children.
Sure.
And I would just like to let a lot of listeners know, I understand it from this viewpoint, as this is something that has been of a concern personally. So a lot of those people, I think, need to understand the problems that you're having should not be projected onto people who are just trying to find the joy in the small things in life you can find the joy in. Now, for the people who say no one's the a-hole here, they're saying, look, every side has the validness when it comes to their feelings.
Sure.
The couple that's enjoying the prospect of having this child should not have that hindered by somebody who can't, and vice versa. The couple who can't have a kid shouldn't be extremely overjoyed for somebody else. Everybody's allowed these feelings. Now, were the reactions correct? On both fronts, probably not. A lot of people were suggesting, rather than go ahead and announce it as a surprise, had one sibling told the other sibling, like, hey, look, I know you guys are struggling, but we're going to announce this to our parents on Mother's Day. I just want you to be prepared for it.
Gotcha.
Then it wouldn't have been that shock. And a lot of people have said that they've done this route when it comes to family, just to be sure that emotions aren't so raw. The parents, the grandparents, these future grandparents are going to be excited about it. But when somebody's struggling, you should probably just go ahead and head that off and just go ahead and make that communication ahead of time.
That makes sense.
A lot of the people that say that they're not the a-holes are just saying that they're not the a-holes because nobody should feel to be made like they're walking on eggshells or that they regretted giving good news.
You should never feel like that. And that's why I said, like, in that moment, they're always going to remember that because of the negative feelings that came along with that now. That sucks.
Like I said, I've delved into all the posts. I've seen all the viewpoints. I think they're all valid in their own different ways. Well, now that we're done with announcing a new edition, let's go ahead and look into some grooming habits. For our last story, am I the a-hole for criticizing my roommate's grooming habits harshly? Hey, y'all.
Hey.
I, 26 male, currently live in a rented apartment with my roommate, 24 male. recently, we've been running into some issues because of his grooming. I occasionally noticed a funk coming off of him, and a few times it got bad enough to ask him to take a shower because it was distracting me and grossing me out. He apologized and said he had a lessened sense of smell, which made him less likely to realize he needed a shower. Sounded kind of BS to me, but he showered, so I didn't think anything of it. Our apartment has 2 full bathrooms in the hallway, and I ordered a bidet for mine. The other day, I was installing it, and he happened upon me doing so. He asked what it was for, and I explained. He chuckled and said, "You gay guys," or something else. I laughed and said, "It's less invasive than toilet paper and more effective." And he laughed and said, "Yeah, but I don't use that either." Something clicked in my head, and I asked him for clarification. Apparently, he never wipes. He says he
You're
thinks...
a liar. This story is a lie. I'm sorry. No. No. What? I never interrupt. No. Continue.
It gets good.
Please.
He says he thinks it's gross to rub his ass with a piece of paper that doesn't really do anything. He said no straight guy does, and it's not a big deal. I asked what he does if he eats Taco Bell or something, and he said he just takes a shower. I asked what if he's in a public bathroom. He says he waits until he gets home. I then asked if he washes his butt in the shower, and he said that the soap from his back drips down and takes care of it. At this point, I was basically gagging and told him he can't sit on any of the furniture I pay for, which is most of it, until he wipes and washes his crusty ass. He got mad and says the only reason I care is because I get f***ed in mine, to which I responded that I'm a top. He got pissy and left after this, and I haven't seen him since. I called his girlfriend to ask if she has heard from him, and she said he came over, explained the situation. She got grossed out, and he left her place. I feel kind of bad for not viewing this as a he doesn't know the right way situation rather than the more antagonistic turn it took. Am I the a-hole?
There's no way this is real.
No, this is real.
No.
I like to believe this is real.
I think the most shocking part of this tale, okay, it's not that he doesn't wipe. All right, that's bad. It's not even the excuse he gives for not, okay, because that's wild in and of itself. The craziest thing about this story to me is that he has a girlfriend and she didn't suspect any of that. So she
was probably just dealing with the funk. Is like, hey, sometimes he just has a really bad funk.
No, this is
it
not
the extra
just the
hair
funk.
or
We're
something?
not talking about BO. Okay, we're talking about shit. There's a difference.
He could spray on so much. He probably takes a shower, lets the water run down and take care of the business down there, and then sprays either a bunch of Axe or cologne and then goes over.
I love this story. This is a great way to end Friday off. This one's severe. This is the spicy meatball of all spicy meatballs, because I can see him going in the bathroom while he's installing this thing, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't wipe." And his friend just goes, "What? Huh?" And then it turned into something that he's right. He says, he's like, "Look, I turned it into something that could have been a teaching experience for him and turned it into I can't believe you don't do that, you animal, get out." Which is the way it sounds like he took it. And then he goes over to his girlfriend, and then his girlfriend, he's expecting for there to be this, like, her understanding, like accepting him for not wiping. And then she like tells him to, like, that's bad. And then he disappears somewhere else. Like, no, man. OP, you're not the a-hole. I don't even care if it was an accusatory thing. He needs to learn that that's not sanitary, even in the slightest. Like, could you imagine? He says, "I let the soap run down my back, and that's all I do. It
takes care of its own business.
I don't touch my crack because it could be," he says, "gay."
Yeah.
That's the reasoning behind all of that?
Apparently.
You know, I think I've heard something like people's theories about that like a long time ago, and I laughed about it because I'm like, that's not what makes someone
there is a segment
heterosexual or gay. That is not how any of that works. But I guess if you want that opinion, you can walk around with a dirty butt. I guess. What? No, I don't believe this story is real. But like I said, the OP's not the a-hole. I look forward to hearing these comments, though.
Well, let me just go ahead and provide you with one comment that I thought was absolutely hilarious. You, the a-hole, for making me read this and question my faith in humanity. Not the a-hole, though. Get a new roommate, hire a biohazard team to come in, set the place on fire, and report a complaint to the Geneva Convention.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people were saying, that this guy was like a super homophobe. OP says he's not a homophobe, just gross. He actually set me up with several guys, although to be fair, a few of them weren't gay. He just thought they were.
He just sounds like he's unaware. I don't think there's anything bad from it.
I don't either.
I think it's harmless, but the fact that he doesn't know to wipe.
I guess for me, being the poster, it would have come to my attention that the toilet paper would last way longer than I thought it would.
Yeah. Well, he says is like there's 2 different full bathrooms, right? So maybe he never would have noticed.
Possibly. But then you would never notice that he'd ever purchased toilet paper ever. That the roll inside of his bathroom, there was never one. Because technically...
That's an M. Night Shyamalan twist.
Technically, yeah. Like, I guess for me, I'm just
never gets replaced.
It's the same roll that's always been. The one that he borrowed just for looks.
Yeah, that's a hilarious story. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget.
Wipe your butt.
You see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We will be regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
And please feel free to leave your comments below because we'd love to hear everyone's opinion on all these stories today. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet. That was a dastardly story.